Michael Goodchild, could you stand, please? Michael Goodchild is Emeritus Professor of the Geography Department of the University of California at Santa Barbara and the unchallenged global leader of the newly developing field of Geographic Information Science, GIS. GIS began as Geographical Information Systems, a basic geographical technique that has become a major research field at the interface between geography, the social sciences, computer science, statistics, and cognitive science. Dr. Goodchild has led research teams that created new analytical methods for the integration and analysis of many forms of place-based data and large spatial databases within a science that has spawned a rapidly developing multi-billion-dollar industry with applications across many fields. The quality and innovative nature of his work has led to his unique standing as an elected member of the US National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a foreign fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, a corresponding fellow of the British Royal Academy, a recipient of the Founders Medal of the Royal Geographical Society, which has previously been given to, amongst others, David Livingstone, David Attenborough, Jacques Cousteau, and Louis Leakey, and a recipient of the Prix Vaudin-Lude, the Nobel Prize of Geography. He's published more than 500 papers, generated over $55 million of research funds, and graduated 27 PhDs, 13 of whom are from Western, and 30 master students, many of whom now teach GIS at universities across North America. Mike was born in Somerset, England, went to Taunton School and won an open scholarship to Downing College, Cambridge, where he earned a first in physics in 1965. His enthusiasm for caving took him to McMaster University for his doctorate in karst geomorphology. At McMaster, he also developed interests in computing, spatial statistics, and GIS. Joining the geography department at Western in 1969, he taught his first GIS course in 1972 and was the youngest head of department between 1982 and 1985. While at Western, together with academic and government colleagues across Canada, the US, and overseas, he developed new techniques, theory, and research applications of GIS and spatial modeling. In 1987, the US National Science Foundation invited proposals to develop a national center for GIS. Mike was recruited by the geography department at Santa Barbara and joined the successful consortium that became the US National Center for Geographical Information and Analysis. He became its director in 1990 and led their research activities and many groundbreaking proposals over the next 20 years. Initially, GIS was a technical field within geography that has developed into a theoretical interdisciplinary field relating the nature, capture, and manipulation of geographic data, working with large data sets, fuzzy logic, fractals, and many types of data. To reflect these developments, Mike formally rechristened it Geographical Information Science in 1992. Subsequently, he has led many innovative projects involving remote sensing, open access to data, crowdsourcing, and creating maps using volunteered geographical information from individuals using the internet and even cell phones. This has also led into discussions of ethics and privacy concerns with these data. The increased capacity and speed of computers has accelerated the development and applications of GI science. Throughout this period, Mike has effectively engaged a large academic and non-academic community in teaching and investigations that utilize spatial thinking and GI science. Mike is an outstanding teacher, an excellent motivator, organizer, and visionary who has led the development of GI science in the Americas and globally. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and in the name of Senate, I ask you to confirm the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa upon Michael Frank Goodchild.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Science honoris causa. Congratulations, Dr. Goodchild. On behalf of all assembled here today, I shall now like to invite our newest alumnus, Dr. Michael Goodchild, to address Convocation.
Chancellor Emeritus, Professor Chakma, distinguished faculty, family members, and last but absolutely not least, since this really is your day, the new graduates of the social sciences at Western. First, congratulations to one and all on what you have collectively achieved. Second, thank you for this honor, for Professor Luckman's far too kind words, and for the opportunity to revisit Western more than a quarter of a century after leaving for California. It's good to be back in Canada, the land of peace, order, and good government. I once heard a broadcast by Garrison Keillor as part of his Prairie Home Companion from Duluth, Minnesota, in which he remarked that if you looked north from Duluth towards Canada, you could, quote, see what is possible. In Canada, you managed to campaign, hold an election, and count the vote all in the space of a month. While in the US, presidential candidates are lining up in droves, more it seems every day, and we're already overwhelmed with coverage of a presidential election that is still 17 months away. I have a recurrent anxiety about missing aircraft, being lost in airports, being stuck in traffic on the way to the airport. In recent days, that anxiety has been replaced by another one about this speech. I show up without it, at the wrong time, the wrong day, the wrong campus, or just forget to put it together and have to wing it. I think all is good today, though. However, I'm definitely here, and this is definitely my speech, so all is good. I first came to Western from Hamilton in January of 1969 to check the place out. I was a newly minted PhD with an offer of a permanent position in hand. There was no such thing as tenure in those days, and I had an offer of a salary of $10,500 a year. The border cities, Detroit, Buffalo, Cleveland, were in flames. It was the height of the Vietnam period. Americans were streaming north. The loonie was at $1.10 US. I crossed the campus bridge, parked in front of Middlesex College, where geography was located at the time, looked up, saw the Gothic limestone spire. In contrast, the rest of the world seemed very unsettled at that time, especially in Southeast Asia, across the border to the south, and also in Paris and various parts of Europe. As we used to say, all quiet on the Western Front. I thought, this is the place. I took the offer. Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. Fiona and I had 3 daughters in the space of 4 years. They received an excellent primary education at Orchard Park Public School. And we left after 19 years for an irresistible offer at the University of California's Santa Barbara campus. Sun, sand, and surf, 365 days of the year, almost. My eldest daughter has 3 degrees from Western. Her husband has 2, my wife has 1, and now finally, after 27 years, I have 1 also. Who would have thought? I first encountered the idea of putting maps into computers in early 1967. And by the way, if anyone here was born and is graduating today, was born before 1967, special congratulations to you. I heard about this idea of computer mapping at a workshop that was to be offered at Harvard. What a strange idea, I thought. Computers are for doing calculations, Why would anyone ever want to put a map in a computer? Curious, I signed up. I drove my 1959 Chevy Biscayne to Boston, stayed for 2 weeks at the Huntington Y, and learned about CIMAP, the world's first computer mapping package. The only output device at the time was a line printer, which whacked characters onto paper and did it 6 lines per inch. All you could do to make a dark mark on the paper was to whack characters on top of each other. And when you produced your map, you stuck the sheets of paper together, stood back 20 feet, and looked at this display on the wall, which was 8 feet by 11, and tried to imagine it was a map. It was hard to see a revolution in the making. Who would have thought that that crude spark of 1967 would grow into the mapping apps of today and a GIS industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars by some estimates? Who would have thought that today in the palm of your hand, you could hold more computing power than the world's most powerful computer of 1990? GIS has had a profound impact all across academia, perhaps nowhere as much, though, as in the social sciences. It has tapped vast and abundant new sources of data, from social media, satellite remote sensing, the use of GPS. It has enabled us to ask questions about where. How does where you were born affect your life outcomes? How are your chances of surviving a first heart attack dependent on where it occurs? When we attack crime in one area, can we predict where it will show up, where it will relocate? Where are the foods you eat coming from? What risk factors impact international supply chains? And what happens when they are interrupted? GIS has enabled a spatial turn in the social sciences and a host of new opportunities for research and a new imperative to understand how the brain processes spatial data, how we navigate, how we understand the world around us. This year, for the first time, a Nobel Prize went to a team that works on how the brain stores spatial memory. So I spent 19 formative and very productive years at Western, developing GIS software, writing papers, teaching and working with students, and collaborating with faculty in geography and across the campus. I used early versions of GIS to advise on the route of Highway 402 around London and power lines from the Bruce Nuclear Generating Station, to help the London Separate School Board develop a 20-year plan for its elementary school locations, to locate Wendy's restaurants in the West Island of Montreal and Petro-Canada stations in Toronto, to solve the problem of what to do with wastewater in the Petrolia oil field, and to help the London Fire Department deal with the mysterious number of false alarms, mostly false, that appear to be coming from a particular area, of high-density area of North London. None of this was planned. None of it could have been anticipated. It was all a matter of responding to opportunities as they arose. It was both innovative and useful, and a good fit, I think, to the Western motto of veritas et utilitas. Looking back, I realized that very little of my life has been planned. At Cambridge, it was customary for undergraduate physics students to have an exit interview with the Cavendish professor, who at that time was Neville Mott, later Sir Neville and winner of the 1977 Nobel in Physics. I'd spent much of my spare time at Cambridge exploring caves in various parts of the British Isles. I described my plan to enter the PhD program in geography at McMaster to study, what else? Caves. He cogitated for a while, looked me in the eye, and then said, "What a curious career. Well, I do wish you luck." I don't think much planning went into having our 3 daughters, and I still find it hard to believe that all 3 have doctorates, and between them have given us 7 grandchildren, 4 of whom are here today. Who would have thought? So here are a few words of advice. Take them for what they're worth. The first is me speaking as a geographer. Engage the world. Don't block it out. I always ask for a window seat in an airplane, and I always keep the shade up, figuring that the view is worth the reduced access to the toilet. Travel as much as you can, because the world at first hand is reality. And right now, the opportunity for travel is better than it has ever been. GIS gives a wonderfully rich view of the world, but I've learned that often what is most important and what is most interesting is what, in fact, the GIS does not tell you, what you can only learn by being there, by visiting the place firsthand. Second, say yes often. Carpe diem and all that. Seize the opportunities that come. Take risks, knowing that you will never be in a position to make a rational decision about an unknown and unknowable future. Third, keep your mind active. Resist the temptation to rely on calculators, spell checkers, driving directions, and all the other helpful apps. Use them to augment your mind rather than replace it. Your mind is a beautiful thing. Celebrate it and challenge it, as you've had it challenged here at Western, to keep it active and engaged. Above all, make a habit of focus. The modern world offers an endless series of possible activities and distractions. Figure out what kinds of activities fit what settings. What can you usefully do, for example, when sitting alone for long hours in an airplane? Block time for email. Don't let interruptions spoil your focus. I've often tried to identify the settings that I find most stimulating of new ideas, when the mind begins to wander creatively. This is obviously a very personal matter, but for me, it's listening to boring sermons, and not to mention boring convocation speeches, and particularly classical music concerts. When I'm listening to Bach or Mozart, I find my mind wandering very creatively. Finally, understand that you are not alone, that whatever plans and ambitions you may have, they must involve and to some degree rely on others. My wife Fiona's colleague Harry Kroto, who won the 1998 Chemistry Nobel for his invention of carbon-60, otherwise known as the buckyball or Buckminster fullerene, likes to tell a story you may well have heard in a similar form, but I hope you'll excuse me repeating it here, about a recent Nobel Prize winner who was driving to the airport with his partner on their way to the ceremony in Stockholm. He stopped at a gas station, went inside for a while, and when he came out, his partner was just finishing a conversation with another man. "Who was that?" he asked. "Oh, just an earlier boyfriend. Come to think of it, I was going to marry him before I met you." "Then you made the right choice in marrying me," he said, "and I know you're going to enjoy coming with me to the Nobel ceremony in Stockholm." "No, no, no," she said. "If I'd married him, he would have won the Nobel, and he would be taking me to Stockholm." So thank you again for the award of this honorary degree. I will cherish it and add it to my many other memories of London and Western. And congratulations again to the class of 2015. Thank you.